Here you see her coming in the lane. She's last of 3 right now. Going to swing outside these horses, and what you're looking for is how quiet the rider's hands are, and look at that giant stride. You see it in her races, and you see it in the morning.
And we'd also like to thank our colleagues at HRTV for helping us out and getting this work. 1 week ago, Zenyatta completing 6 furlongs in 1:11.1, listed as handily. Mike Smith aboard, and now the big work you'll see live on TVG Saturday morning. It could determine where she goes against the boys in the Classic on Saturday or the Ladies Classic. And if you want to play Zenyatta or play against her, you got to go to TVG.com. Staying on the Classic and horses pointing there, what a year it has been for the connections of Mind That Bird, upset winner of the Kentucky Derby, returning to a track that he was on last year in the Juvenile.
That's exactly right. Certainly was, and he finished 12th, beaten 9 lengths in that race. So some would question whether he handled the synthetic surfaces. Here we are a year later. He's a Kentucky Derby winner. He's had throat surgery since the Kentucky Derby, and he's back here in Southern California for Chip Woolley that's been vanning him all around the country. What you're going to see here is a horse of Barry Abrams in front of him, Tom, called Lethal Heat. That's the filly that's cross-entered in 2 races. And some of the excuses that the camp gave after the work were that Mind That Bird had this target to run at, and that's why the work was a little quicker than they would have liked.
Well, you know, I'm paying attention to Mind That Bird because my concern is he over the top? Has he had too much? Because despite everything, they have not stopped on this horse. But I see the Mind That Bird that I saw back in the beginning of May before he ran the Kentucky Derby, where he also worked in this fashion. He's really stretching out those legs. This is a good finish for Mind That Bird. I think he likes the surface. People forget he's 4 of 7 over the synthetic. He's getting over the track very nicely.
This was on Monday right here at Oak Tree at Santa Anita. Kentucky Derby winner Mind That Bird working 5 furlongs, 58.1, the fastest work of the day. Joe Talamo aboard. Summer Bird. It looked like it was going to be the year of Mind That Bird as far as the 3-year-old colts, and then Summer Bird slowly developed, starting with his big win over Mind That Bird in the Belmont.
Yeah, he's racked up the Travis and the Jockey Club Gold Cup. This work was earlier this week, in between races, last past Sunday at Santa Anita. You got to remember, this is a horse that trained early on in his career out here in Southern California and was sent by that current trainer then back east because he didn't think he liked the synthetic surfaces. What do you make of this, Tom?
Well, I think it's important to note, Simon, that when you take a horse out in the afternoon and working between races, they will work quicker than they work in the morning. Watch Kent DeZormo on Summer Bird here, particularly when they get to about the 8th pole. That's almost the last portion of the work, and you'll see him move his hands for the very first time in Summer Bird. What he's looking for is whether or not Summer Bird quickens down the lane or not. That should tell him how well he's getting over the pro ride surface. You're going to see it right in here. Pay attention to Kent's hands right through this area. He's going to open his hands up and call upon Summer Bird. There he goes. Right there he calls upon him, and you definitely see Summer Bird quicken. That's a very positive sign.
Yeah, I like the way he's moving over the track. Kent DeZormo taking a peek down at his stopwatch there, and there you can see he hits it as he crosses the wire to make sure the work is in the time that trainer Tim
actually checking if he was on time for his flight back to Keeneland.
Yeah.
Kent DeZormo flew all the way out from Lexington, Kentucky, where he's having a tremendous meeting at Keeneland to be here for that work. If you're betting Summer Bird, you're going to TVG.com. Let's take a look at the pre-entries for the Ladies Classic. Now, whether or not Zenyatta goes in the race, and granted, it would add a lot to it, but this is a deep field. In some ways, I look at it and feel it's a deeper field than last year.
Oh, much deeper, Todd. I totally agree with you. The Careless Jewel to the inside. She is kind of the Summer Bird of the 3-year-old filly division. She's woken up late.
Excellent scenario.
Yeah, she's woken up late in the second half of the year, and I think she's a filly that's going to really use her speed to advantage over this racetrack. There doesn't appear to be a whole lot of pace in this race, and she will be the one to catch.
Tom, you said you're looking forward to seeing Careless Jewel. Here, your wish is granted. Tuesday, over this very surface, going 6 furlongs, Robert Landry aboard.
Well, you won't miss her. She's a almost white filly, and she's also, maybe they should call her Mighty Mouse. She's not a very big filly, but boy, she runs in a big, big way. That race in the Alabama 2-back where she won by 11, that stamped her as one of the top fillies in the country. But here we go. You can see her taking a pretty aggressive hold here. Look at the rider having to sit back pretty hard against Careless Jewel, and she's going quick. Those are quick fractions, and she's stretching her legs out, and she doesn't leave a lot for the end of this work, Simon. To me, she kind of empties out in this work. We're going to get to that in just a minute here, but I'm looking at what she does down the stretch here. Now, in defense of this work, it was a while between when she had worked, and that can tend to make a horse, when he's thrown off routine, get a little too aggressive. In my opinion, she definitely does.
Yeah, she does. She's an aggressive filly. One can see that in the way she races. One can see it here, the way she works. And does she have much left down the stretch? You see Robert Landry now just leaning forward. She's not a very big filly. She's only about 15 hands. Each hand is comparable to about 4 inches, so she's not that big, and she's not finishing up that strongly right here. I think the interesting thing out of this work is what trainer Josie Carroll said. This will be this filly's only work leading into the Breeders' Cup next weekend. She will go about 11 days without another serious serious workout. When one looks at the filly like that physically, you can understand why. She's not big, she's not very robust. So maybe this is final work and freshen her up for the big day. She'll be aggressive in the Ladies Classic.
Turned out to be the fastest work of the day back on Tuesday here at Oak Tree. 6 furlongs and 111-1 for Careless Jewel. If you're playing her, you're going to TVG.com. Now a look at some of her competition. Life is Sweet has had a very nice year, but she has lived in the shadow of her stablemate, Zenyatta.
Yeah, she's just praying that Zenyatta goes in the Classic because she's 2 to 4 lengths behind her each and every time she runs. But here she is working with a stablemate. This is a pretty good work, I thought. She's working with a horse called Poet Laureate, who's a maiden 0 for 2. It really doesn't matter what the quality of competition is when you're working. You just like to see them doing the right things, Tom.
Doing the right thing and having a target to work at. When you work in company, as they're doing here with Life is Sweet, that means they're going to demand some finish from her. They want something more than an ordinary work. Life is Sweet is a horse that kind of sits back and makes a late run in her races, and they're designing that work in the same fashion by giving her a target some 3 lengths in front of her right now, and you'll see Life is Sweet will switch to the outside here, come around her stablemate, and I think comes home very, very nicely, Simon. Again, what I'm looking at down the lane here is her stride. Is it extending? Is she doing it on her own? How much is she being asked as she passes her stablemate?
Yeah, she cruises up to a stablemate there under without much asking by rider Isabel Borez, and you can see just doing everything the right way, striding out nicely, moving on the right lead. That means leading with the right front leg down the lane, the left front around the turn. She makes all the lead changes on cue. And for a filly that's had, 7 starts this year, I think she looks in good physical condition.
Life is Sweet this morning at Hollywood Park, working 6 furlongs, 112-1. Second of 10 times raced at that distance. Isabel Borez aboard, and Life is Sweet preparing for the Ladies Classic. As promised, you've gone to TVG Community and asked for him, and now we deliver. Frank Lyons is here in the TVG studios in Los Angeles. And Frank, Rainbow View is going to get a lot of attention in the Ladies Classic. Her North American debut for trainer John Gosden was a pretty good effort in the EP Taylor. How do you see her coming into this race?
Well, I see she's been on the go all year. Her first race was back in May, and she's had a race each month. So what we're going to see, she's going to try the pro ride for the first time. That's the first time she'll be off the grass. And I think we're going to have to see something pretty special. And although I think it's a good move, this isn't anything that I see winning the race. She's going to go off now. She's nice and relaxed. That's one thing about her. And she's listening to the rider. She's just waiting. Now you'll see in a second where she's going to quicken up here. And there you go. And there she goes now. She's quickening up. And she's a dual grade 1 winner already. She won the Hoover Fillies Mile as a 2-year-old. And she won the Matron Stakes as a 3-year-old. Now she goes quickening up there, and she's going to eventually join not a workmate, but another horse who seems to be working about 3/8. And although she's handling the surface very well and she's moving along nicely, I just don't see this as a move that's going to win the Ladies Classic, because I agree with you boys. This is a much tougher race, including the first 3 in the race last year if Zenyatta does run. And then plus Music Note and Provisio. I mean, this is a really tough race. Now, she doesn't switch leads here in the lane, but I would put that down to just being a European filly, and she's just a bit green. And she moves alongside. Now, you watch the inside horse. This inside horse got his head in the air. He's not doing much, but he's still going to maybe outwork her just a little bit. Although she worked a long distance more than he did, she's not really just doing enough for me.
Well, what's not to like? I mean, you watching Rainbow View come to that filly, came to her very quickly, and basically just the hands are still on the outside horse. I mean, he's not calling upon her, Frank.
Yeah, I forgot, Tom, that you were here to argue. I just didn't see anything that really just wowed me. And this is a very tough race. I just don't think that she's going to, because she'll get bet, especially since John Gosden trains her. He trained 2 winners last year in Donatovim and the Breeders' Cup Classic with Ravens Pass, so she'll take play. I don't see it. I
like her quite a little bit, actually, Fran. I might disagree with you a little bit. I fully take your point. She's been on the go all year long. She's a champion 2-year-old filly last year. I thought the work was okay. I mean, she finally switched leads the last 60 yards, and I don't know whether the connections were looking for a really fancy work. She's gone from Leopardstown to Woodbine and now down to here, and I don't think. Yeah, I don't think they asked her to pass that other workmate. Or
no, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. I mean, it is good work. I'm not saying it's not a good work, but I just don't see it as one that's going to win this race.
I thought the work was good. Look, if I'm going to knock her at all, it's that she's coming back and running from October the 17th now to the Breeders' Cup. That's pretty quick to come back in a big race like this. But the work itself, I thought she handled the distance well. I thought she handled the surface well. It's what I'd like to see.